Gentlemen, I call this meeting of the Pearland Independent School District Board of Trustees to order on February 13th, 2018 at 5:07 p.m. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present, that this meeting has been duly called, and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code Chapter 551. Let the record show that trustees Beegler, Murphy, Gooden, and Barry are present. Trustees Decker and Botkin will be absent. Trustee Floyd will be joining us soon. With the meeting called to order and established of a quorum, we will move into public comment. Now, for public comment, the way we work it is that there are 30 minutes set aside for public comment, and each speaker gets 5 minutes. We have several speakers who are signed up to speak to the same thing. So one of the things we'll ask to do is that if you would group yourselves and choose a person to speak on behalf of your specific topic. The two groups that I'd like to ask to do that are the individuals who are here to talk about the early start time and the individuals who are here to talk about youth basketball. So allow me to call out those names. Let's see, Coach Barrett, Mr. Greer, Ms. Nava, and Ms. Collins. If you all would choose a spokesperson. And for the regrouping, okay, AP students, AP changes, early start, Ms. Zhang, Mr. Rabe, and Mr. Frick. If you all would please find each other, raise your hands, and maybe choose a yes. Okay, Mr. Frick, Ted, I saw you. Ted's right. Okay, y'all are right next to each other. Okay. So everyone else who signed up to speak on a separate topic will speak independently. Okay, so that way we'll get everyone in. This is the portion of the board meeting where the board receives input from patrons. Each person who addresses the board will have 5 minutes to speak on his or her issue. Because of topic posting requirements of the Open Meetings Act, board members will not ask questions of the patron and will not answer any questions posed to the board by the patron. No action can be taken on any issue presented during this patron comment segment of the board meeting. Patrons addressing the board will be notified when they are approaching the last 30 seconds of their time to speak. So first, let's start. Ms. Georgia Cook. Yes, ma'am, right there. And the floor is yours. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. Good evening, and thank you for allowing me this time. Today I'll be speaking on behalf of my 5 children and other children within our district. And I'd like to start a discussion regarding the addition of a wrestling program in Pearland ISD schools. Forgive me if I'm reading, I just have a lot, and if I go off script, then I won't get it all in. I do realize there's a lengthy process involved, but nothing worth having comes easy, and I feel this is a cause worthy of my time, effort, and energy. Currently, our big neighbors, Friendswood ISD and Clear Creek ISD, have very strong competitive wrestling programs, and the LaPorte School Board just approved the addition of a program in their high schools. According to Texas UIL 2016-2017 season results, there are currently 93 6A schools that have high school programs competing in Texas. One of my children, Dylan Nichols, is 14 years old and currently in the 8th grade at Junior High South. He's actually my nephew, and my husband and I adopted him over 4 years ago. He has had a very troubling, difficult childhood and battles learning disabilities, emotional shortfalls, and social struggles. He's attempted team sports in junior high with no success. Sports like football and basketball are difficult for kids like Dylan. He doesn't fit in with the sports and popular kids. He stood behind the line of the kids on the sideline the entire season and never played one game because he was terrified of actually playing. He signed up to play because he was desperate to find a way to feel cool and to fit in. They don't turn any students away when they want to play in junior high, so he was on the B team and again never played, and also never became an actual part of the team. If anything, this hurt his self-esteem more than the possibility that it helped. Dylan discovered wrestling last year and found his niche. He's a great wrestler, enjoys being able to compete with other kids his age and size. He's pretty small, and that was part of the cause of his fear when it came to football. He finally has a sense of self-pride, enjoys the fact that he can compete and have his skills and success acknowledged and doesn't have to fit into a traditional team. He does wrestle as a member of a team and they accept him for who he is. They celebrate his wins and help him to see his mistakes and his losses so that he could do better next time. The other wrestlers put his quirkiness aside and respect what it takes to be a wrestler and see him for that. Something that I've always heard is common in wrestling. That is something that I've always heard is common in wrestlers. And as I've spent almost every weekend for the last several months at youth wrestling tournaments packed with hundreds of wrestlers from all walks of life, I've witnessed this to be true. As a parent, there's no better feeling than to see the joy and happiness in your child's eyes, especially when they have always struggled to find their place in life, and the joy has eluded them for things outside of their control. Unfortunately, the club level ages out of competition at 15 years old, and if something doesn't change, his wrestling career will be over before it ever really began. I'm devastated at the thought of having to tell Dylan that he will no longer be able to wrestle, and any possibility of a college wrestling career won't happen, especially since college has not always been something that he even talked about or looked forward to until he discovered wrestling. I have reached out to the PISD athletic director in UIL to cover my bases and learn about my options. The athletic director suggested that we start a wrestling club here in the city, and unfortunately my husband and I both have full-time law enforcement careers, and that's not an option. Just a few points about wrestling for those that may be unaware. It's actually the 6th ranked sport of all boys in terms of participation at the high school level, with 244,804 teams nationwide. There were 11 U.S. presidents that were wrestlers, 4 senators, military leaders including General Patton, actors including Robin Williams, Andy Rooney, Tom Cruise, Neil deGrasse Tyson was a wrestler, and many others. It's a great sport because anybody can do it. In this sport, you wrestle people the same weight as you. The size is not an issue as it may be in sports like football and basketball, and it helps young people develop important qualities such as self-esteem, sportsmanship, work ethic, leadership, skills, etc. It's the world's oldest sport and teaches control, not violence. Wrestling develops agility, balance, reflexes, and strength in every major muscle group and can dramatically improve one's ability to perform in other sports. And I had a whole bunch more, but not enough time, so I will skip to the end where I have several quotes that may help my cause considering the importance of football in Pearland.
30 seconds, Ms. Cup.
Wrestlers make coaching football easy. They have balance, coordination, and as a coaching staff, we know they're tough. Tom Osborne, Hall of Fame football coach. I draft wrestlers because they're tough. I've never had a problem with a wrestler. Joe Gibbs, Hall of Fame football coach. I would have all my offensive linemen wrestle if I could. John Madden, Hall of Fame football coach. 5 minutes is just not enough time to relay all the benefits. I hope if nothing more, I've piqued your interest enough to look into the possibilities and consider my request for further discussion.
Thank you very much, Ms. Cup. Next, Mr. Fulis, to talk about the issue of suicide. Thank you, sir. The floor
Hi,
is
everyone.
yours.
Last month, I spoke to you about the Pearland ISD GRIP program, its ineffectiveness, its wastefulness, and its inappropriateness as a response to the recent rash of suicide attempts in the district. I also talked about Dr. Kelly's rationale for starting up that program in the first place, which, according to his blog, is based on a desire to emulate Asian cultures that see learning as a, quote, arduous process, unquote, so that the success of some of our talented young Asian American students can be more widely shared by their non-Asian counterparts. In response to that last speech, some folks were good enough to post additional information on this topic, and I'd like to share some of that with you now. An October article in the Berkeley Political Review focused on South Korea and pointed out that while South Korea has achieved remarkable growth in the 60 years after World War II, turning what was once an agrarian, impoverished colony into the world's 13th largest economy, a major social change has been the high suicide rates among large segments of the population, including adolescents. South Korea has the #1 highest suicide rate in the world for children ages 10 to 19. Suicide is the 4th most common cause of death in South Korea. On average, 40 people commit suicide every day. The South Korean Health and Welfare Ministry estimates that 90% of people who committed suicide in 2016 had a diagnosable psychiatric illness often caused by stress, such as depression or anxiety. South Korea is known for its high-stress educational environments in which it is customary to work or study long hours into the night. For Korean children, most suicides are caused by stress relating to education, where all the studying they do is to get into one of the country's top 3 universities, all of which are known for their minuscule acceptance rates. And this problem does not end when cultural norms make the transition from Southeast Asia to the United States. Among U.S. college students, nearly 1/4 of whom experience depression or anxiety symptoms severe enough to warrant treatment, Asian American students are more likely than their non-Asian peers to report experiencing those symptoms. According to the Office of Minority Health, suicide is the 5th leading cause of death among Asian Americans, compared to the 9th leading cause of death for non-Hispanic white Americans. According to the CDC, among women aged 15 to 24, Asian American females have the highest suicide rates across all racial ethnic groups. I should probably add that some of the people concerned enough to bring these facts to my attention were themselves Asian Americans. So can we stop and reflect on this information? I certainly think that there are things we can learn from educational systems in Asian countries and other countries around the world. We'd be fools to assume that only a traditional American education can be the best for our kids and refuse to change it. But should we be all about driving our kids towards higher test scores at any cost, even if that includes escalating stress levels to the point where they endanger the lives of our children? Given Dr. Kelly's stated reason for initiating the GRIT program and the high suicide rate in the district, must we not ask if our kids' lives are already being endangered by this philosophy? We can't just stick our heads in the sand and assume that this isn't happening. As I have said time and time again, we must not fail to put the welfare of our children first. Last week I was at the district's Carousel of Resources event and was pleased to find that there are a variety of groups in the area, some working directly with the schools, that can help with counseling and therapy for our kids. I also listened to a good talk about suicide and the risk factors that parents should watch for, but I heard nothing at all about any of the risk factors that Pearland ISD can actually do something about, like start times that are too early, crushing homework loads, extracurricular loads, relentless testing, and emphasizing that your young life might just be over before it begins if you don't get into the right college. And of course, there's the way that the district treats LGBT students, but we already know that you aren't very concerned with that risk factor. When I asked about these factors that the district controls, I was assured that, quote, conversations were taking place, unquote, in the schools about it. That's great. Perhaps the students and parents could be invited into those conversations. Perhaps we could look at the data that I would hope you would have at your fingertips on how all of these factors influence teen suicide rates. Please give us some assurance that you're making responsible decisions about this. And it has now been 5 months since I invited 6 board members that have not met the little girl being denied bathroom access and who we know has an elevated risk of suicide to go and meet her, and the number that have done so still stands at 0. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Fulis. Next, Mr. Morris. Discuss the potential rezoning of neighborhood.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I live in the Sunrise Lake neighborhood, and I wanted to speak for just a few minutes to first affirm and then also ask that you consider to continue the rezoning of our neighborhood. I understand, I should acknowledge right up front that I understand that you are looking at this issue, and I very much appreciate you doing so. And we are trying our best to wait patiently to find out what comes of those studies and the potential rezoning process that is going on now. But I did want to really just try to register my attaboy, if you will, to you guys for looking at this, and also to kind of remind you of some of the reasons why several of us residents feel so strongly about this issue. As you might know, probably already do, our neighborhood is one of the only, if not the only ones in Pearland ISD that is actually split zoned across 2 different zones for schools. We are also the only neighborhood that is west of Cullen that has to drive east of I-35 for junior high and middle school. That in particular is a huge detriment to kids that are trying to be involved in extracurricular activities and other things like that. That does not yet affect my children. My oldest child is currently in 3rd grade at Lon. However, we have already started seeing issues with being able to maintain friendships, as he's traditionally had a difficult time developing friendships with his peers due to some issues I won't go into. And we've been very excited this year when he's come home talking about, different friends that he's making in class and all of that. And A couple of them we've tried to coordinate with to make, if you will, play dates, if he's not too old to call them that anymore. And we find out that they live clear across town. And we are not the only people that have this issue, I know. The frustrating part for us is, I will admit, we didn't look into this issue as much in detail as we could have when we relocated a few years ago from the east end of town to the west end, because we knew in the past that this neighborhood had been zoned for Challenger, which is a much closer school. And we were really disappointed to find out after we closed on our house that we are actually the last street that is zoned for lawn. So we can literally see people across our back fence that go to Challenger, which is 2 miles away, when we are having to drive my son for some of those issues I said earlier I wouldn't go into, 6 miles each way.
All right, we will reconvene at 5:27 p.m. with the recording equipment working again. We were in public comment, and Mr. Michael Barrett is here to speak with us on behalf of a group about youth basketball in Pearland. The floor is yours, sir.
Good evening, school board members and superintendent. It's good to be here again. This is my family here. This is one kid that has been with me since she's been in the 3rd grade. And y'all don't know her now, but you probably will by the time she gets to Pearland High School, because she's competing against other kids that are playing in AAU, and she's very competitive against them and stuff. She's just a little meek. We got to get her a little bit tougher and stuff, and a little bit more playing time. So that's why we're here to ask if the school board will grant us permission to, gain access to one of the schools. It doesn't matter, 1 hour, 2 hours a week, 1 day a week, anytime that that would be able to be possible. Anybody else want to speak? So I provided a letter to you, so I'm not going to read it. I'm not going to take your time today and stuff. You can kind of read it yourself and stuff. It it goes into a few details and stuff. But basically, we just I'm a retired physical education teacher from HISD, 30 plus years. I coached high school basketball, I coached high school tennis. I had elementary school teams. I had all kind of programs within the elementary schools at HISD. So, and I've been coaching at the YMCA here in Pearland since 2014. 2014. I didn't realize I had been here that long, and I coach fall, winter, summer, not summer, fall, winter, and spring seasons every year. So I would just like to have an opportunity to advance some of my kids by, using your facilities and stuff, so if it's possible. So again, I want to thank you for allowing me to speak to you. And you have my contact information and everything on the back of the letter that I gave you. Thank you.
Thank you, Coach. Appreciate that. Okay.
If y'all okay, he still has 3 minutes. Can I use a little bit of his time to talk about
I don't
Coach Barrett?
see that's technically not what we were gonna do,
Okay.
but
Well,
I guess you're still in the time. Go ahead. Go
Okay,
ahead.
well, I will keep it short. I am one of his parents. He has coached my daughter from a young age. I have 3 kids, all of them in Pearland ISD at different ages. One's in high school, he's in choir. Some of them different sports, different activities. Coach Barrett is one of the most dedicated people I've known in these kind of activities. He coaches teams through the Y here in Pearland, and he doesn't have a kid on the team. I've coached with kids on my team. He doesn't have a kid on the team. He doesn't care about winning. He cares about teaching. It's a very good service that he provides. I have had signed him up before when he had access to a gym where he ran these little camps and stuff. My daughter's kind of athletic, but not really skilled in any sport. She really took to it, and one of the few sports I've been able to get her to stick with. He does a great job coaching these girls. He's very caring about these girls. He cares about their safety. One of the things that some parents get mad is he tells them don't dive, which is a good basketball fundamental, but not for a little kid where you get hurt and then you don't want to play next year. He really does do a good service, and so I really would implore you to consider his offer, because Coach Barrett does help this community in his time. He gives of his time freely now, and he just wants an opportunity to be able to take that extended time beyond the limits of the Y and what they have, and opportunity to practice some additional time, some additional development for some of these kids who may not necessarily be as tall as our example here, couldn't maybe make an AAU team, but could eventually grow and make a good athlete and good basketball player. So I do ask you to consider his proposal and consider his coaching, because it does help, I think, the community. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for the breaking the contract.
And you're gonna get me fired, man. All right. It's my first day on the job. Anyway, okay. We're going to
Temp right now.
say it again.
You're a temp.
My attempts, right? Okay, now the last topic we had was related to high school start times and AP and high school start times and AP grading system. So, did you all choose a spokesperson? Yes. Who was the spokesperson? Ted, you were up? Okay. So you will be the 5th speaker, and so we actually have room for 6. So if one of you would like to join, we can certainly do so. Or you can keep it as you got a good spokesman.
Good guy.
So I'll go for my 5 minutes, and he's gonna have his second 5 minutes on
Outstanding.
similar but different topic.
Okay.
Listed.
Okay. Good deal. Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Frick. The floor is yours, sir.
Dr. Kelly, Board of Trustees, Pearland ISD officials, and the general public, good evening. I am Ted Frick. I'm a senior at Turner High School. Most of y'all know me up here for my efforts with the district as far as suicide prevention, amongst many other district initiatives. But I'm just here tonight as an ordinary student speaking for other ordinary students on a topic that has, as you can tell, gotten a hold of the community within Pearland ISD. Pearland ISD is home to some incredibly high-achieving students, and we're very, very proud of them. And they already put enough pressure on themselves to perform at a certain academic, athletic, extracurricular level. But when you mix this with the lack of sleep, this is creating an unhealthy and concerning effect that I believe that we need to address. Many students, especially high schoolers, would benefit from a later start time. Now, I could speak from statistics, but I'm not a scientist, and I know some of y'all up here already have y'all's minds made up on this topic, and I couldn't change it no matter what, as I am not you. But what I am and what I can speak from is I'm an AP student, I'm a dual credit student, I'm a regular course student, and I am just speaking on behalf of everyone else, all my fellow classmates, no matter what school they go to, no matter where they're zoned. Now, on average, I get about 3 hours of sleep a night, which is about, on the lowest estimate, a third of what they recommend teenagers to have. So I'm usually going to sleep around 2 a.m. in the morning, and that's on a good day. Sometimes I've had to pull out all-nighters, and on those circumstances, it puts me in a very unfriendly and vicious cycle where I'm sluggish through the day because I had to stay throughout the night to complete my work, to take care of the tasks, because if I don't, I face the ramifications. I face the dropping grades. I face having those conversations with the teacher as to whether I can pull my load in this course. I know I can, and I don't feel that I know I'm not that student. But having to pull an all-nighter, that leaves me more sluggish, which means when I get home, it takes me longer to complete my studies and the work I have to, because I didn't understand the material as well as I could have when I was in class, where I could have asked questions if I was more alert. And that's only human for me. Now, if I could have a few more hours, so where I could get the sleep I need, so I can take care of the work I need to, so I can go into class the next day and be more alert, so I don't come back home the next day after that and have a struggle where I have to continue another all-nighter because I didn't understand the course fully, and then as you can tell, it just over and over and over again until I catch some holy divine and some intervention, and I may get an hour or two in between. Now, as my time is winding down, I thank you for your time, and I thank you for your consideration on this topic. I hope to meet you with all of y'all individually in the future to discuss this topic a little bit further into a little bit more of the specifics of it, so we can actually see some solid change, not just a whole bunch of rah-rah and rhetoric. Some of my colleagues with me tonight, they have a couple petitions that they would like to introduce to you, so they can show you some of what the Pearland community is discussing, and so we can all work on this together, so we can address the issues together, so we can lead the Pearland youth to a healthier tomorrow. And regardless of your stance, I ask you to think about the students, because students like me, students in the 8th grade at Miller or East, South, wherever, and even the students at elementary schools, regardless of the stance or even the issue about, we are the product of these decisions that are being made. Whatever's decided in these couple rooms is what I have to go into the world with. So I ask you that you take this into consideration. Again, I thank you for your time. Hope to meet with you all in the future. God bless. Good night.
Thank you very much, Mr. Frick. Okay, we will have one more speaker. If you would, sir, approach the microphone and state your name for the record.
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Zhang Jian. I'm a parent of the Dawson student, and I'm representing a small social media group, which all of us are from Dawson. We have around 100 parents. And first, I want to thank Yin from the Stark School Nature and some of the ISD board members who helped us the effort in trying to make some change to provide our students some healthy learning environment. We would like to have some suggestion for the AP class grading policy. Currently, AP classes are weighted based on 6.0 scale and regular class on 4.0 scale, and students can select all AP classes up to 7 each semester. This has good intention originally to promote more students to attend AP classes, but there are some unintended negative side effects which we have to fix. First, because of this ranking within the school is a very big factor for the college selection. The students who want to get in the good college have to choose all 6.0 classes. So even one 4.0 class will pull the grade GPA or the ranking down significantly. and eliminate the opportunity they may get into best college. And in general, one of our parents in our group said her daughter, who is Dawson student, she is now in Harvard. In her class, most of the students have 7 to 8 AP classes, but in Dawson, students graduated will have average 16 to 18 AP classes. That's significantly higher than other people. And this put too much strain on the student, and so the student have to work on the tests and homework each day. And many of them sleep after midnight, 1, 2 o'clock. I remember one time I helped my student on the AP physics. We sleep at 4 o'clock in the morning. In addition, this policy prevents the student to have their own passion. The passion is very important, and because of this, some students trying to select some class they like the art or the dancing, but they are all 4.0 class. So it's impossible for them to select the class, to select them. There's one parent, her daughter is in dancing class. She is a national merit program, the finalist, but because she has a dancing class, her ranking was pulled down significantly. This is unfair to her because she did really good in her dance class and with a good performance. And in addition, because the students need to develop their career inspiration, they need to develop their career inspiration and choose their future field. This policy will prevent the chance for them. They will lose opportunity to. This will prevent them to have this opportunity. This policy encourages ruthless competition for ranking and extinguish their true passion and inspiration. And so what we propose here is to have, after we studied several ISD approach, we found that AP policy similar to Memorial High School is the best fitting for us. In the opposed change, students can take whatever they want, but only up to 5 AP classes can be counted towards a 6.0 weight, and the rest 2 will be based on 4.0, no matter it's AP or not. In this way, they don't have to have the pressure to take all AP classes, and they can choose 2 other classes they are interested in, such as band, team, sports, and PE and dancing, art, or any other beneficial classes. AP or not, they would not have to do the GPA waiver on band and team sports anymore, and they don't have to do online PE. This leaves more time for them to develop their own interest, more time to sleep with reduced stress. We talked about this with some parents in Memorial High School, which has this policy. Nearly all of them are very happy with the policy, and because they say that they give their children the freedom to develop their own interest, which is much more important than only a good grade. And they still have many AP class, which so that their kids can get into the best college. Thank you for the consideration and implement this in our ISD. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your input. Thank you. All right, my thanks to all of the speakers tonight. Thank you very much for coming out and giving us your input. Okay. The board will adjourn into closed session at 5:43 p.m. No voting will take place in the closed session. Any action the board wishes to take as a result of the discussions in closed session will take place after the board reconvenes in open meeting. For the purpose of consideration of matters for which closed sessions are authorized by Title V, Chapter 551, Texas Government Code, Sections 071 through 084, whereupon the superintendent will present for the board's consideration and discussion the following matters. Attorney-client consultation. Real estate is permitted by Texas Government Code. Personnel matters. Discipline of student or personnel is permitted by the Texas Government Code. Board, thank you very much. We'll present. Thank you all very much. All right, ladies and gentlemen, the board will reconvene in open session at 6:22 p.m. No action was taken in closed session. Are there any motions?
Yes. Sorry. I have 2 motions. First, I move we accept and approve the superintendent's recommendation for employment of personnel as presented.
Motion by Ms. Biegler, second by Mr. Berry. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. I switched it up on you. All right, the motion carries 5-0 with trustees Botkin and trustee Decker absent. Is there a
Okay.
second motion?
I have one more. I move we approve the settlement offer for attorney fees related to special education hearing costs as recommended by our council.
Second.
Motion and second, Beegler and Barry. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0 with trustees Botkin and Decker absent. Please excuse me. All right. We'll go right into introductory remarks. Mrs. Beegler.
I'm keeping it short. Let's do the pledges and we get right to recognizing our wonderful students. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. All right, let's do recognition. Ready?
We're going to go right into board recognition.
Hey, I know. I was like, what?
I'm just used to it.
Good evening. Pearland ISD is home to some of the most talented individuals in the state of Texas. And now comes the time that we like to recognize them for their achievements. Parents, feel free to come up and take photos at any time. First, the Dawson High School volleyball team recently competed in the 2017 UIL State Volleyball Championships and claimed the title of regional semifinalist. I'd like to invite Coach Jason Karim to introduce the members of his team.
Good evening. I have 9 of the 14 members from our varsity team. First, senior Jordan Sinet. Senior Marissa Bell Torres. Senior Sarah Kirk. Junior Chloe Clark. Sophomore Maddie Delott. Junior Kennedy Johnson. Senior Jalen Finney. Sophomore Nikki Delott. And senior Caitlin Tripp. Very successful year. We made it to regional semifinals, and the senior class was a part of 123 wins at Dawson. So very, very successful year. And the varsity team went 31-4, which is the best year we've had at the school. So.
The Houston Rodeo's School Art Program draws more than 300,000 entries every year. During the show, approximately 60 pieces of art are selected by judges and auctioned off for student awards and the Rodeo's Educational Fund. Last month, 7 of our students won awards for their artwork during rodeo art judging. These artists will display their work at the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo Hayloft Gallery next month. From Massey Ranch Elementary, and Jolly Johnson, who won Best of Show. And Jolly's art teacher is Sean Tadlock. From Rogers Middle School, Xian Ju was a gold medal winner, and her art teacher is Miss Lori Henshaw. From Pearland Junior High West, Best of Show winner, Carolyn Ung. Also gold medal winner, Faith Victoria Nee. And Carolyn and Faith's art teacher is Krista George. From Dawson High School, no stranger. Best of Show winner, Miss Helen Wang. Gold medal winner, Emily Frosto. Gold medal winner, Jamie Lincoln. And their art teacher is Miss Terry Zutek. As our photographer gets her, she'll get out of y'all's way, parents. Just look straight ahead. Stay where you are. Congratulations. Good job, you guys. Thank y'all. Each year, Texas high school seniors who show good moral character, have an overall grade point average of at least 92 throughout high school, and are in good standing as an athletic training student are eligible to receive the Texas State Athletic Trainers Association Academic All-State Award. This year, we have a recipient from Dawson High School, Adami Wilkerson. And this evening, she is joined by trainer Roderick Williams. And we actually have three more students who could not, I believe, three more who could not be here with us this evening that received this award. There you go. Congratulations. Finally, this evening we'd like to recognize students who beelined to the top spot in the district spelling bee. From Massey Ranch Elementary in third place in the district spelling bee, Tanisha, I'm so sorry, Anbu. All right, Tanisha Anbu. From Rogers Middle School, Hantao Jen came in second place. And finally, the top honors for the Pearland ISD Spelling Bee, who will represent the school district at the Houston Public Spelling Bee on April 1st. And it's a qualifier for the Scripps National Spelling Bee. We have from Barry Miller, Jordan Hilaire. Congratulations to all of our students. Now I'd like to invite Dr. Kelly up for a special presentation.
Well, this is a very rare award we're doing tonight with one of our Pearland ISD employees. We call this particular lady an unsung hero in our school district. Tori Landis has been with Pearland ISD since 1994, first serving as a teacher and librarian at Lahan, Salvatore, Massey Ranch, and Pearland Junior High South. In 2007, she joined the curriculum and instruction staff here as the federal program specialist and grant writer. Very much a behind-the-scenes person that you don't ever see in the spotlight. In this role, she has been this unsung hero, working to secure and administer grants, overseeing federal program reporting, and instructional material allotments. Tori worked tirelessly to secure the 21st Century Grant for the district, which provides after-school care to at-risk kids, which helps 600 students in some of our lower-income campuses. In the last 5 years, Tori has brought in and supervised over $19 million of funding for this district. She has managed these funds effectively while maintaining an above and beyond work ethic. So please join me in recognizing Tori Landis prior to her retirement. Come on up.
Okay. Good, okay.
All right. We will keep moving with the agenda. We are going to take an item out of order. We're going to take the report on the new K through 12 robotics initiative.
All right, and members of the board, we have Damon Rayburn, who we've appointed to be the leader of the entire district robotics effort. He is one of the pioneers in our district with robotics, and I'll hand it over to him and to Margot Giggy, the head of our advanced academics department.
Thank you, Dr. Kelly. And you're absolutely right when you asked who can lead this charge with robotics. It's Damon Rayburn. Not only does he have some firsthand knowledge in robotics, he gets things done. So thank you for this opportunity. Okay, I first studied robotics in 1993, And I'm pretty good at imagining things and looking at trends and predicting the future, but back then, there's no way I could have imagined what we have right now. It's the norm now for a toddler to pick up an iPad or some other type of device and learn reading and learn skills electronically. If you look on the left side of the screen, that's how many people get a knee replacement surgery. They have a robot that reads your MRI and uploads that and does the surgery. They're finding that in many cases there's less infection, shorter recovery time, and it's certainly more precise, more accurate. On the bottom right is a picture of a Mars habitat prototype. NASA issued a challenge to some college students to use robots and 3D printers to try and construct a habitat for Mars. And the advantage would be using the natural materials of Mars and actually constructing that habitat prior to having humans on the planet. And then above that is a store an Amazon store in Seattle, where you don't have to wait in line. You just have your card or your chip or it's an app on your phone. You walk in, get your stuff, and walk out. It automatically uploads to your credit card, which is paid by your bank automatically, and of course your paycheck's deposited, so you really don't interchange with the money. On the top right is one of my new favorites. This is an android. She's come a long way from 3CPO in the 70s. This is Sophia. Sophia is an android that was built by the Hans Company in South Korea, and she can not just have a conversation, she can debate, she can sing. She's been programmed to show empathy and emotion with certain keywords, and she is actually a citizen of Saudi Arabia. Okay. Got a short clip for you. Go back. Won't work? Maybe. Can't work when we set it up. Okay, can you go to the link or not? Yeah, okay, we're gonna skip that. It worked when we set it up, but we've had some issues since then. This is just a short video clip. I'm sorry, what?
Is it the YouTube link at the bottom of the slide?
It's not showing for us. Do you wanna try it?
It's under the Imagine slide.
Go back one, see if you can find it.
That's not on yours, it's on ours.
Maybe it is.
Did you copy and paste? You wanna paste it on there? That's okay. All right, if you want to watch it, okay, if you'll take a second and watch it on yours, it's just 1 minute.
Yeah, I don't have it on here, so.
Special, I don't see it.
I'll send the link to you.
Okay, consent, let's go on.
Yeah, we'll just.
Let's just move on. It's just a cute video. It shows some students, some very young children, and their sense of imagination and why that's important. So we asked the question, why robotics in Pearland? There's a very high student interest. We have as many as 60 students at one school and 90 at another want to be in robotics clubs, only to find out there's room for 30. It's not just something that's current for now and an high interest, it's a way of life. It's suitable for all students with a wide range of abilities. It started as a GT thing in some areas, and we found that lots of kids, all kinds of kids, really love robotics. There's a need for developing what we call computational thinking and creative problem solving. There's a need for that in many of our future jobs. It's more integrated in our daily lives. All students interact with artificial intelligence. It's not unusual for very young children to speak to Alexa and expect things on command, on demand. The knowledge of programming will be as essential to our students' future as some of the things that we learned back when we were in school, just using a typewriter, then learning the keyboard and writing, but learning programming, not just interacting with software, is essential and for future jobs. Programming and the robotics program is based on patterns. Patterns are the basis for language development, math, science, as well as computing. Okay, the vision for Pearland ISD Robotics is to have a vertical alignment of curriculum in kindergarten through 12th grade. We looked for models to follow, and there are none. We could not find one K-12 aligned robotics program in Texas, and we looked thoroughly. There is one other school district in the area that's looking at a K-12 program implementation next year, and the exciting news is we entered kind of a conversation with First Robotics, and they were only awarding one partnership, and that was awarded to Pearland ISD. And so the potential for thousands of dollars in grants and scholarships is there for our future. So we're excited, very excited about that. We want robotics to be an extension to classroom instruction. And Dr. Kelly threw down the gauntlet, says a championship team with First Robotics. He's talking world championships. So we'll see. We'll do our best to prepare students for that. It's a short clip from them.
This team's given me the opportunity that no other club or organization can really give me. It gives me the opportunity to express ideas, to learn, and to grow as an engineer or any other career that I would probably want.
I've learned so much, not just between engineering, but because I want to go through the audio and video pathway. Paradox 5414 has taught me, hey, we need someone to film for us. And that's really good for me because I can put that under my resume and look back as experience. Not just for the school, but for our community.
So personally, me and a couple other students have gone to Sabotura, or also Pearland Barry Miller Junior High, and we've been able to lead students in smaller programs that taught them basic electrical systems, basic mechanical systems, and it's just implanting the thought of STEM and the thought of growing up to be on an FRC team, and that's changed community because anything we can do to grow the incoming students into the world of STEM helps.
Okay, we have some students here who are just really excited about robotics and can't wait to tell you a little bit about what they know and show you some of their robots and their prototypes. So if you would take just a minute or two and go meet and greet our kids and ask them what they know about robotics and why it's important to them.
You can just bring them up here and give them the microphone.
See that thing in action.
Okay. I know we have students who need to get home and get that sleep that everybody feels is so important. So if you could start winding down and going back to your seats or going home, that'd be great. Thank you so much, kids and teachers and sponsors for being here.
Rein him in, Charles. Rein him in. There's not much reining him in, I get.
He's up there in the middle of the crowd.
Oh, yeah, I know.
I'm not signing any loan documents.
I want to see that one go underwater. I want to see that.
The sea perch?
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Crazy. Next year they can come test it at my house in the pool.
Yeah, they probably could. They
Yeah.
might even, maybe you volunteer and they'll come over and do their thing there.
Exactly.
They try to do it in a little tub at Salvatura.
That didn't work out. Mm-hmm. It's right here.
Okay, outstanding session on robotics. We will go back to the consent agenda. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Okay, motion and second, Mr. Berry and Ms. Beegler. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please raise your hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0 with trustees Bakken and Decker absent. Next, to the regular agenda, item 1. Consider to approve the proposed district school instructional calendar for 2018-2019. Dr. Kelly?
Sony, if you'll come up and help me here. I think the way I'll do this, guys, is if you agree, we can do it some other way, but take you through the calendar that the committee is presenting, and then I know there's strong interest in discussing alternatives, and so we'll get into that. First, you'll notice on page 56 of your package that you'll get a list of all the people that are on this calendar committee. There's a total of 34 folks on there, teachers, principals, and about 9 parent reps. Okay, they discussed a bunch of calendars, including one that did end before Memorial Day, but unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to look at that, that only got 1 vote. The rest of the folks voted for this calendar. So let me just give you the bare basics on it. It starts on August the 20th after 5 days of staff development and 1 work day, including 1 work day by the teachers. Off for Labor Day, and then there's a staff development day after that. One thing about this, just to get ahead of ourselves here a little bit, a staff development day already counts for the minutes. Right. So you can't change a staff development day and get minutes. So if you can keep that thought in mind.
Wait,
The maximum we can have is 5.
we could move it around.
You can move it around a staff development day, yes. And we'll give you some ideas depending on what your pleasure is. In October, there's another staff development day. In November, the week off for Thanksgiving as always. In December, a long Christmas break with an early out on the 20th, and then basically the kids are off all the way until the 10th of January. The staff comes back for a work day on the 7th, and then 2 staff development days on the 8th and 9th. In February, a staff development day on President's Day. In March, the full spring break. In April, Good Friday is the only holiday. And in May, state law prohibits school from being held on Memorial Day. And so we end with an early out on the 30th with graduation on that Friday night, the 31st. So that is the existing calendar. Do you want to say anything about the recommended calendar before we get into alternatives? About this calendar before?
Yeah. As Dr. Kelly said, the staff development days that are in the middle of the year, they count, we can have up to 5, and they count for 420 minutes each, just like our early dismissal counts 420 minutes because we go over 4 hours.
Now, I don't know if this is relevant or not for what y'all are thinking, but the staff development days that occur before the kids begin school do not count towards the minutes.
For minutes, correct.
You only count staff development during the year that we've got waived for.
Day 1 for students to last day of students.
Now, well, I guess let's open it up for board discussion before we get into alternatives.
May I ask a question about the, how many minutes do we get for a full day of school?
Right now, we get 430 minutes.
4:30.
And if we have a staff development day, the school, they only give us 420 minutes.
As they do for early dismissal.
As they do for early dismissal.
Because we meet that guideline from the state that says it has to be over 4 hours
So
long.
the reason that for the difference, Charles, is we have a day that is 430 minutes, but TA only gives you credit on those staff development early waiver days of 420 minutes. That's not a major factor, but every little bit counts as you're trying to get to the magic number of 75,600 minutes.
Correct.
I guess my question is, what was the objection to getting out before Memorial Day by the committee?
The objection was that we would have to, that we would have to start the year either a lot earlier, or we would have to shorten the holidays. And Christmas was the one that was shortened because it's difficult to shorten the others, because that's the longest one. So those were the two objections.
Oh, and one other thing,
If we
guys, that I don't want to take out of the existing calendar, 2 bad weather days in minutes are included. What that means is if we had 2 bad weather days during the school year, we would not have to make them up.
Correct.
Very unpopular to have to make up bad weather days that are not in the calendar. So almost all school districts now are doing what we did here, which is build them in, those minutes into this number.
And Mr. Berry, going back to your question, part of the reason they didn't like starting earlier with the students means it would mean starting earlier with the teachers also, and new teachers. We'd have to start as early as August the 2nd with new teachers in one of those calendars.
Okay, well, I'll start. Well, and I'll admit, before today, I did not realize that staff development days and early release days, you actually get full day credit, which I find preposterous in the common sense world. But if you're getting the minutes, you're getting the minutes. And to the other point, as far as days you start, I would say this, I've probably never had as many complaints about a calendar as I did this year. People in general just thought it was absolutely crazy that we had 13 days off at Christmas, and that we still couldn't get out by Memorial Day. So I don't think presenting this to the general public and the parents is going to go over any better with 14 days now off at Christmas and still not getting out before Memorial Day.
Can I ask what the changes were with this calendar being presented and the last calendar and the one the year before? So the changes between
Yes,
where is
the changes,
the growth in
yes.
holiday, or where's the?
Yes, the changes are, as you can see, we were one of the few districts that got out as early as we did for Christmas this year. So this calendar is closer to the other districts' calendars, meaning we start Christmas break a little later, the 20th, well, the 21st, 20th is early dismissal, but then go longer in January, which was what other districts did this year.
Is that how is that compared to what we've done years prior?
In the past, we've always come back the 2nd or the 3rd in January.
And more importantly, if I remember right, you guys help me on this, 3 years ago, we had to go into June because it was before the minutes calculation got into TEA.
We had to do days.
And so we had to do just number of days.
Right, thank you.
Right. Well, and with that being said, I get it. It makes it a little bit more difficult when the students are on a minute and the teachers are on a days. They're on a contract. So
Correct.
But the teachers have to work the same amount of days no matter when you start and when you finish. So their contract is X amount of days. So I get you don't like coming back earlier, but if you come back earlier, you get out earlier. If you come back later, you get out later. The teachers still work the same amount of days. So their schedule, even though it may be actual different days they work, is still the same amount of days in a calendar year. So they still have to work the same amount of days.
Well,
as far as starting earlier and trying to end earlier, I don't necessarily have a problem with that. And a lot of the main concern of those 2.5 days after Memorial Day is I think they're probably completely ridiculous. Nobody's doing any work. No work is getting done. The children are not learning anything. They're not good educational days because you're already through all your tests, you're through all your STAR tests, you're through everything that has to be done. You've just taken a 3-day weekend for Memorial Day. Summer has officially started out in the world. and you're coming back and they're not,
Yeah.
let's be realistic, they're not learning anything those 2.5
Secondary
days.
schools do have final exams on those days.
Great.
Typically.
That was it, but you could do the final exams before that. There's
Yeah.
the levels that are being taught of anything new, those 2.5 days is nil, in my personal opinion. So
Well-
those days of actually getting good educational minutes would be better served before you get out for that holiday
Well,
weekend, in my personal opinion.
And I hope I'm not prejudicing the board in one way or the other, but I can give you what I think is, if you want to accomplish this, the easiest path. I can give you that, and then see what you think. You want to do that, Charles, or?
Would be fine.
Okay.
Gentlemen,
All right.
we could bring that back over. Yeah, go ahead.
In my opinion, and I worked with Sonia on this, the easiest way to accomplish this, because basically what you're trying to do is you're trying to get credit for 3 more days somehow in order to get it so that you don't have the 3 days after Memorial Day, right?
Right.
The easiest way that I think is change December 21st into a school day. It's an early out, but it's a school day. Okay? Everybody got that?
Mm-hmm.
December 21st.
So just, yeah.
It's an early dismissal day, yes.
That'll gain you 1 day. In January, move staff development days to the 7th and 8th and eliminate the teacher workday. Now, this is not going to be popular with teachers, so what I would do with the 7th is I would make it a flex day, meaning that principals can use it as they wish, and the teachers can opt out of it by having completed X amount of staff development in advance of that. They got the whole summer or the rest of the year before then to do it. So, do you see what I'm saying? Move, you see 7th, 8th, and 9th there with the 2 squares. Move that to the 7th and 8th and eliminate the teacher workday, but give flexibility on the 7th, because teachers want time in their classroom before they have to start school and have staff development.
That would start school on the 9th.
So that would start school on the 9th, yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
So that
Correct.
gets you the 2nd day. And then the 3rd way, I hate to say these in front of John Palumbo because he knows all the pros and cons of how this really affects people on the campus. But the third day could be captured by adding 3 minutes to the school day throughout the district. 3 minutes. If you do those 3 things, to me that's the easiest way. Now, Pam brought up another way which some others might think of as easiest, and that is start the school year earlier. And
I'm just throwing things out there.
a bad idea, I think, would be to eliminate the bad weather days to get you part of the way there, because we seem to need those every year, at least lately. And other bad days is I don't think we should mess with Martin Luther King Day nor with Good Friday.
Well, I agree
So-
with those things too.
So those are, did I leave anything out, Sonia?
Yes, sir, you've covered everything. It would also mean if with your recommendations, the teachers would have to come back after Memorial Day still.
Oh,
Like-
yeah, I forgot about that.
Like Ms. Beegler
Pam-
says.
Pam brought up the
Right.
minimum number of days. So what we would have to do is bring them back that week after Memorial Day, even though the kids are gone.
Right.
And we might create, I think David Moody and others have worked on this in the past year to turn them into flex days and other things, but it affects all kinds of pay issues and everything else. We can't just do away with those
No, I
3
understand
days.
that, but and I'm not trying to diss on the teachers by any means, because they are the backbone of our district, but they have to work X amount of days. It's not a minute thing for them, unfortunately. The state has not got on board with it being equal with the children. They have to work those days, so that's what I said. They have to put those days in this calendar somewhere. So, but to get in line to have better educational hours for our children, or minutes for our children, and to still, I've been on the board for 8 years, and every single year we have this discussion about getting out before Memorial Day. And I don't know that besides the 1 year that it's ever happened, because that was the year they went to the minutes. So we were able to adjust our schedule after the fact. It's like one of the biggest complaints I get on a daily basis from parents, and when the calendar comes out, and we still don't change it. So.
And Pam, I'll give you one more worry. We have to schedule NRG at least a year in advance.
I understand
and we've
that.
tried to nail down originally the 31st. Right now, let's see, the
Graduation.
graduation can't go on the 27th, which is Memorial Day, and somebody else has first dibs on the 28th. We may be able to get the 28th, but we cannot get the 24th or the 25th, correct? Sonia, 24th
Someone
and 25th?
has already, and Ms. Weimer will come to explain it better. Someone already has 4 days, but they will only need 2 days, another district. So
Okay.
we don't know what 2 days they're going to give up. So they could give up the 25th, the 26th, the 27th, or the 28th.
Well, we'd take any of, we'd take,
Right? Yeah. Oh, sorry.
When I
ahead.
graduated, we were
basically,
at
within RG,
Hawthorne's
like any other-
Pavilion.
There's not enough room there.
So
There's no parking and not enough space.
go ahead, Dan, I'm sorry.
NRG, like any other venue, once you start going, people have been there before you and they have their dates.
Yeah.
So ours in the past has always been that first Friday after Memorial Day. So in 16-17 with the district innovation, we just happened to call in March and somebody who was saving 2 spots let go of one. So we were able to graduate then. So she automatically, she being Rose Harshfield at NRG, puts me down this year again for next year for the 31st, which is the first Friday. So I called today, and I'm on the first option now, but Klein, like they've done in the past, is actually the Thursday and Friday before Memorial Weekend and Memorial Day or Tuesday after. So if they drop the 24th, then we can have it, but otherwise, we're kind of locked into the
But, well, if they
31st.
drop the 24th, can we have the 25th?
We can have,
Saturday or Memorial Weekend.
Well-
Saturday, Humble is there, and Alvin is on the 26th.
Well,
Okay.
but I'm just saying, the rest of the schools around us are graduating on the Memorial Day weekend. I mean, they have these days reserved, they're using it.
Goes until the 30th also.
Okay.
calendar goes till the 30th.
For next year.
Well, and as far as Christmas break, last year, several districts around us went all the way through Friday. It was a full day on Friday. And we got out the Friday before, a literally 5-day school day week before several districts around us.
And
So-
have we pinpointed NRG as the preferable place year after year? I know that may be a discussion that comes up. I wasn't here last year.
Yeah, and I think the last time we actually did a survey, so occasionally we do it every 3 years, so it'd be time again. But the places we've looked at you have to have been there before, or it's all locked in. Or we looked at things like distance when you look at big venues on where to take, because we have about, when we do the turnstile number each year to see how many guests and visitors we have, it averages about 10 per student. So to be able to put 6,000 and seat them, along with the seniors on the floor, there weren't too many venues open. We called places like Grace Church, Toyota Center. We've called, I have one in Klein, but then you look at distance, how far do we want to drive, for the parents to drive to see that. So it's just tough in getting everything we want with seating capacity, close proximity, and that kind of thing, so.
And parking.
And
I
parking.
remember when I first got on board, we did look at Toyota Center, but the problem is, depends on the basketball schedule.
Playoffs.
Typically, if Rockets are in the playoff, they'll cancel your already made reservations for basketball games. So there's not a lot of choices out there for indoor with parking with the space. So I mean, I understand that as well. So-
Dr. Kelly, you made a recommendation on a way we could get out before
Yes,
Memorial
sir.
Day. I wanted to ask this question. Is it a way to get all the time we need out of the Christmas break?
Okay, let me,
So shorten the Christmas break so that we don't have to touch.
well, I am shortening it by 1 day on the 21st. But the problem that I see there, Charles, is that people are so used to 2 weeks of Christmas. I don't see us.
And the way it falls, if I may, Mr. Gooden.
Yes, ma'am.
The latest we can really get out is the 21st, because Monday is the 24th.
Right,
You
that's
don't really want to have school on the 24th.
Oh, no, I mean, I
So
would
can
suggest that, not
the
suggest
work
that.
day? Well, no, you don't want to take the work. You don't want to put the work day on the 4th. Or when I say you don't want, that wouldn't be preferable to put the work day on the 4th.
No, I
Because
think-
that takes away the full 2 weeks.
Yes.
But if you went through the 21st and went back on like Tuesday,
Tuesday, which,
Tuesday, the 2nd of January?
you mean,
no, the 8th of January.
yeah, that's what, oh, I see. Just have 1 day of staff development, or workday on the 7th and then go to
We
school.
we lose minutes if we do, we lose 420 minutes.
Yeah, that doesn't help us. Remember, that's staff development already.
Yeah, they count,
Does staff development have to be at certain times of the year, or can you just
No, it can be any time, but it
move
counts.
them all to that last week of May, and that way they don't have to come back?
Well, it's
I'm just
not
asking.
productive if it's the last week of May, because we use staff development to prepare teachers for what's happening during the school year, getting the students ready for the testing calendar, the instructional calendar. It wouldn't be productive.
Just asking.
Yeah. And so for Labor Day, my second question is, it's different to have a 4-day weekend for Labor Day, right? So we're having, it was August.
Remember, we already get credit. Oh, you think about...
I'm just, those were the two things that I thought on the calendar that I had questions about, right? Why was the Christmas break so long? And we talked about we can perhaps shorten that. And then the second one was we have a 4-day Labor Day weekend now.
So to use that, Sonia, correct me because I don't keep track of this.
Labor Day is we're working on that Friday, so it's only a 3-day.
The staff. I'm sorry.
Oh,
the staff development.
the Tuesday.
That's a day off for the students.
Right, yeah.
So they're off Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. They come back Wednesday to
So right, so the teachers those would be staff development days, yes, for teachers, or work days. There would be teacher work days.
Okay, but maybe I'm missing the point, but taking Charles' suggestion would be to move the staff development day to the 3rd and then have school on the 4th.
No, sir. My question was, how did that come about?
Oh, okay.
Because we haven't had that on the calendar previously, have we? Not that I know of.
We haven't had what? I'm sorry.
We haven't had
Labor Day.
the work day on the Tuesday after Memorial Day. Excuse me. The
Oh,
staff development
you're
day
talking
on the
late
Tuesday.
in September, Labor
Yes, ma'am.
Day?
Labor Day,
Okay,
yes, ma'am.
Labor Day. I'm
Yes, ma'am.
sorry.
So yeah, that's new for the calendar this year.
That is correct, because remember, this is the first year the state is allowing us to have 5 waiver days for staff development where the minutes count. That is the difference.
Wait, so why can't we move on the 4th of January? Just put a work day on that Friday and then start on that Monday.
And they don't get 2 weeks.
Because at that point we were like, well, we take away the full 2 weeks.
2 weeks, a week and 6 days.
Means a lot.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, we're not supposed to make people happy. We're supposed to do the right thing. And if we can get folks out before Memorial Day, would that not upset? I mean, if I had...
But you're asking
We
teachers to be
can-
off all week and then just come in on Friday from Christmas
prepare
break.
for the next semester.
And so that's what the Monday is. And we had a suggestion that had the work day on the 7th.
It can be done anyway. It can be done.
Right. So we
Yes.
had well, Dr. Kelly's
Yes,
suggestion
suggestion
was
was
that we
the
put
7th, right.
The work day on the 7th,
Right.
and then the work day on the 7th, one staff development day, right, and then we start school on the 9th.
Right.
Actually, both of them would have to be
I'm sorry,
staff
they'd be on the 7th
development.
and the 8th,
Yes.
right, and then so
Yes,
okay.
I just want to make clear. Sorry.
Right, okay.
You still have 13 days in a row off.
But yes, we
Can
could.
can we consider? I mean, I know you hate to do it, but I mean, can you consider pulling out one of the weather days and
To get partially there.
get partially there, and then if we address that issue when it comes, because with weather, you just I mean, like this year so far, knock on wood, it was just the ice days that we didn't have to make up. So, we're halfway through the year and we're good. So,
We could. I mean, I'd
I
have to look back, but it seems like every year we've used probably a couple, I think.
And the other risk you are running, if I may, Mr. Murphy, if it happens late enough that there are no holidays left, then you have to extend the school year into after Memorial. Or if you extend it, you're probably going to miss out a lot of a lot of student days, meaning
Well,
they're
but
going
if
to be
you're-
absent.
but
And
if
so
you're-
you'll not get the funding.
They're
hang on.
going to be absent anyway.
Yeah, I mean,
Sometime you have to make up a day that was not on the original calendar, whether it has a star by it for bad weather days or not. People aren't going to be happy, and most of
they
them.
email us and want us to close school.
Yeah, attendance is
But-
low.
But
Thank
my
you.
point being is that if you're doing what you can now with the weather day to get them out before Memorial, if you have to come back late in the year, it's going to be after Memorial anyway. So I mean, it's a risk you're going to take, but using that day would help with the holidays. And I mean, it's a gamble essentially, because you don't know what the weather is going to do.
No, we did discuss that today. I
Yes, we
didn't
did.
follow through on all your thought that, yeah, since right now the calendar gets everybody out on the 30th, the worst case scenario with bad weather is we'd come back that week. But as Pam says, there won't be anybody here.
It doesn't matter when you
So-
make it up, though. You know how that is. They're
But-
not going to be here anyway.
The only
This year, one of the bad weather days was it's the first day of spring break, right? That's our
Yeah,
comeback.
our
Like,
our
who's
bad
gonna
weather
come
day
back
is
for
who's
the-
going to come on spring. I mean, the
Yeah,
week of
they've
spring
already got
break to
paid
make up a
vacations.
day.
Yeah,
They're not-
that's
no,
the
they're not
hard part.
coming.
Well, and I think the
I just
only
don't have to use it.
well for me the only issue I had with the suggestion you gave was lengthening the school day.
Uh-huh.
And you know, it's been like an incremental creep on you know how we're gonna do that. So
And we're adding 5 minutes this
Yeah.
week.
Can't we just make
so-
lunches longer?
Right?
What's wrong with
6
10 minutes a day?
6 minutes this week. So a day.
I also
Is
know
it
that
is it that awful to add 6 minutes to the day?
I just was out at bus today at 2:25, and there were no kids out there because the bell didn't ring until 2:31 today.
Oh, there you go.
Making it even 3.
I also know
Couple
that
extra
Trustee
walking in.
Botkin had a lot to
There
say
you
about this issue.
Yeah, he did.
And so I talked to Dr. Kelly, sent an email suggesting and asking if we could postpone this conversation till next month. And I don't know if there's any conflicts.
Tabling it?
You know, there's a lot of
Tabling.
people impatient because of summer vacation plans and other things, but there's no.
Well, we
yes,
don't have our next
Think
meeting
it-
is
we
March
can
it's
sixth.
pause
almost
the vote.
March.
March 6th.
Yeah.
So what we could do is there any way that you can come up with a configuration or two that would get out before Memorial Day, and
I can come up with 3, yes, sir.
Well, I like
I'd
the one I
appreciate
just
I've got
gave
3
you.
right here, so yes.
Ms. Serrano, our
Tested may work, but I mean, I just.
board
But I
members
don't have
allowed
time.
to attend
I don't
these
have time to
DECA
go to the
meetings?
committee, though.
Sorry?
I won't have time to go to
Are
the
we
committee.
allowed to
but I can bring
attend
3.
their
DIC meetings.
Do we have? Are we allowed to attend your DIC meeting?
It's a
DACC,
DACC meeting, and yes, you may, but I don't have one scheduled until
which means no, she's not gonna schedule
the first Monday in March.
You mentioned that you can't go back to the committee with this.
I,
and
d-
that-
I
well, you
can
just
go
don't
back
have
to the
time.
committee, but I don't know that I'll have it in time for the board
then
meeting.
that's
Is going to
March
be on the
6th.
3rd, right?
March 6th.
6th.
And Ms. Serrano, can you clarify what are the? We talk about this every year. Can you just reiterate from your? And again, just as Lance would say, for those playing along, the people that you have meet. There's one representative for every school, and then a group of parents, or 2 representatives.
2 representatives per campus.
Right.
Parents that are, there's 3 parents from elementary, 2 from middle
Right.
level, and every high school
So let's
sends
just call them
parent
involved parents that are on this committee. Can you tell me the 1 or 2 things that you took away that they said is an absolute yes or no?
The absolute yes or no that I hear from that committee, you may not like it,
I-
they want the 2 weeks at Christmas, and they want the 1 week at Thanksgiving. Those are the absolutes I hear. As a matter of fact, I have the minutes from the first meeting, and I could read them to you.
That's okay.
And that's what the committee asked.
My idea preserves all of that if you're interested. My original idea.
So you're taking. So are we taking the weather? Are you?
Well, I was going with December 21st, January the 9th as school days, and then adding 3 minutes to the day for the whole year.
Yeah.
I'm good with that.
3 minutes.
You okay with that?
Palumbo
John?
says 5.
Okay. John Palumbo told us.
End on an
Yeah,
F.
right. Yeah.
You are on record, sir.
I mean, that shortens.
Well,
That was John
well,
Palumbo that
so
he
we've
wanted
hit-
to add 2 more minutes
We've hit
to the 3.
We've hit 20 minutes on this, and we kind of understand what the flavor of the discussion is. And what I want to ask is, do you have enough guidance to go back and bring us another calendar on the 6th?
Yes.
Incorporating, okay.
Yes, certainly.
Right. So for that,
Do
it's
you-
not necessary. Yes, ma'am.
You want this one calendar that Dr. Kelly has kind of talked about, or you want more than one calendar? Because that's what Mr. Berry asked for. I just want to be clear.
I would like to just see different iterations of it because we're going to have different people on different things. And can you do it next year too?
The issue with having 2 calendars, Jeff, is that technically what's supposed to happen is that
So we need to make a
committee-
motion to table this.
No,
until
we don't need to take any action, but we can, if we just give guidance, to come back, or we can postpone it, right? So either one. But I'm kind of concerned with them coming back with more than one calendar, because the way the process is supposed to work, we get one calendar to approve because it's been all the way down to through the committee work, and so we kind of know what the framework is that we're asking for.
sir.
So I don't know that two options or
Yes, sir. I will
don't know.
bring
So
back.
So can we just get one that maintains the current start day?
We can do that.
Yeah, we are doing that with my suggestion.
Yeah.
It does.
And if
Dr.
we
Kelly's
add two, and if
suggestion.
we add 2 more minutes, as per
Three.
Mr.
Three more
Palumbo.
minutes.
The Palumbo rule.
Well,
you have to add a
two-
round.
two
And
more
those
to
2
yours.
extra days.
3 plus 2.
Come here adding 2.5 minutes to the
3
day.
plus 2.
3 plus 2.
The Palumbo calendar.
Palumbo calendar.
I'll let Mr. Palumbo make the calendar. How's that?
Where would you be putting those extra minutes?
At the end of the
Lunch.
day, right?
So in that final period, or would it be in the period that has less time?
I think
Which I
that
believe
would
is
vary
first
by campus.
period.
I would probably try to spread it out as much as we can throughout the day for classes, but it'd be basically 1 minute a period, not trying to see if I can capture something through a passing period or something like that to get the rest of it.
Or lunch.
Lunch. I like lunch.
That's how we would capture.
So it's campus by campus, right?
Instructional
Yes.
minutes, please. Instructional minutes.
Instructional minutes.
Yes.
Lunch.
Okay. So is that significant? I mean, that's good enough
Yes, sir.
guidance.
Good.
We're good to go.
Yep.
But
One
still
calendar, yes,
16
sir.
consecutive days off for the teachers at Christmas break,
I mean, that's.
including the weekends.
I mean, the
Just so
full
we
2
all-
weeks. I mean, like honestly.
Yes. Well, not for the teachers.
Yeah, I mean, count the weekends. They would have 16 consecutive days of no children for 16 days, right?
Oh, counting the weekends?
Yeah, count the
that's
weekends.
always true.
Yeah,
2 weeks
family.
are going to give you.
A long
I know.
time.
That's a lot of days, so.
Okay. Well, all right, then I hear from the board to bring back one calendar that incorporates the main ideas that we put forth, and we'll vote on that calendar next time.
Yes, sir.
Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Rono.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Charles.
Okay, my pleasure. All right, on item 1, the board will take no action. Item 2, consideration to appoint a board member to the Bond Oversight Committee.
Yes, sir. We have had 2 members of the board appointed previously, as you'll see on the list there on page 58, and they were Rusty DeBoard and Lance Botkin. Obviously, Rusty is no longer on there, and I've talked with Sean, and he's expressed some interest in being on the Bond Advisory Committee. It will meet again in March, and it meets quarterly. So whatever you'd like to do with that.
Would you like me to go first?
Is
Or you
lunch
want
provided?
Yes.
I have a couple things. Did we originally have 3? Because was Virgil originally on it? No, he wasn't. I couldn't remember, so that's what I was questioning. And I'll just be honest. Not that I forgot about the Bond Oversight Committee, but I mean, Rusty's been gone since May. So when this came up, I'm like, really? We haven't had 2 board members on there? I didn't think about it before. So, and I don't know if we're interacting with the Bond Oversight Committee or if the administration and group is working with the Bond Oversight Committee, but I don't remember ever getting any news from the Bond Oversight Committee.
Got
in the
no
past.
feedback from them whatsoever.
No feedback from them, at least presented to this board as a whole.
Well, now, Don, you correct me on this, but the last meeting that they had got into the rig. And so they will be, when we discuss the rig, which will probably be on March 6th, we will be giving you feedback from the Bond Advisory on their thoughts about the rig.
Okay.
And normally, if you have a board member that makes those meetings, then that board member could, report.
Yeah,
every
so
couple
that's what I
months
was
on how
wondering,
things
is
are
that
going.
board member that's on there, and he's not
Yeah.
here tonight,
well,
unfortunately, for me to ask.
Pam, I guess I've gotten feedback, and that's why I brought this to Dr. Kelly's attention, just for the feedback that there was, with Rusty being gone, there wasn't much of a board presence or attending these meetings, so I had reached out to Dr. Kelly and brought this to his attention that since Rusty was no longer on the board, that we remove him and add an additional.
Okay. And I'm okay with that. I was just then I started questioning the whole big picture of it. So, and I'd actually, my first thought was, Jeff, I didn't realize you were interested in it for that spot. But it's just, if Lance is really not as interested in doing more, I'd like at least somebody to give him the opportunity to go, or if he wants to get off, then maybe somebody else could get on.
I think he's just been, on the particular days that it's met, he
And I
hasn't been
understand
able to attend.
But, I mean, if Lance can't
But
go,
we-
could another board member
Sure.
go?
Sure.
You know.
You could appoint an alternate if you wanted
Okay,
to.
maybe we could do that, and then that way, if one of the 2 can't go, I just feel like it's been a year, and we never, and it's not like I forgot about him, but we weren't getting any updates or anything from that committee anyway, so it was just kind of out of sight, out of mind, at
Yeah,
least
so
for my part.
I guess the feedback I've gotten is that I always thought that the Bond Oversight Committee was the committee responsible for making sure that the bond project stayed on task with what the original bond that passed.
Well,
With
yes, I'm not sure I'd use the term making sure, because that's really the board's responsibility.
or reconciling or
They-
whatever it might
They
be.
give you
Oversight.
their perspective, because the
Oversight.
idea is that the citizens are watching to make sure that what the board originally proposed is what's going on, and on time and on budget and all that kind of thing, that they're monitoring it, so that we.
So I would think that we would have heard from them before we heard from Mr. Tillis tonight regarding our $3 million over budget on the project. That's my point.
Yeah.
That I would think that they would hear that information first, report to us to say, hey, there may be some issues there. This is what our bond oversight committee discussed, and then we can take that advice. And I guess if we had a board member that was at the meeting, they could have reported back to us.
Yeah.
So.
And pretty much everything that we present here to the board, that the bond oversight gets that also, but because they only meet quarterly, sometimes it's difficult, like we just got the pricing on some of these projects, to have the time to bring that committee in and report to them. Generally, we just ask them to review the board packet, and
Well, and is it, I mean, now that we're getting into the throes of spending money and doing projects and actual construction, I mean, can they meet more than quarterly, or is that just something, is that our rule, is it a rule, is
No,
it?
just-
I mean, it might be in our best interest
To have them meet more
to
often.
have them meet more often,
Sure.
if possible, that way, you know, as things are coming and changing so fast, then
sure. I
they
think,
would,
or like when there's big decisions, we could bring that committee together prior to those big decisions.
So what's the process if the oversight committee thinks something might not be within scope?
Well, for example, I'll give you the rig. You know, they've discussed the rig, and when you guys discuss it on March the 6th, Don will have to tell you what that committee has felt like about the expansion plans for the rig. Whether they agree that that's within the original scope, whether they agree that that's a good idea, whether they've looked at the cost and said scale it down. All that has already been discussed by the bond advisory.
I'm just asking questions. We don't
Yeah,
have to
that's good.
change it, it can stay the way it is, but I would like to at least put an alternate, and then when Lance gets back in town to talk to him, if he's still interested in trying to be able to go, great. I mean, I'm sure he'll be great addition for, you know, to stay on it, but if he can't be there, if we nominate Sean and he can't be there, then we would have an alternative, so we could have two people there.
Okay, we're obviously hearing feedback about the function of the Bond Oversight Committee, which I agree with. Can we consider Sean, appointing Sean and appointing Jeff as an alternate? Does anybody, Jeff, are you shaking your head? It's okay?
I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Make that in the form of a motion.
All right. Is there a motion to appoint trustee?
Yes, I would like to make a motion that the board approve the appointment of two board members to the Bond Oversight Committee. I'm sorry, let me start that over. I make a motion that the board approve the appointment of Sean Murphy as a member of the Bond Oversight Committee with Jeff Berry as the alternate.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second, Beegler and Floyd. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please raise your hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0 with trustees Bakken and Decker absent. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Okay, item 3, consider to approve the guaranteed maximum price amendment to the contract with Stewart Builders for services related to the Pearland High School 2016
All right.
bond project.
And of course, this is the big GMP, and I'll just hand it over to y'all. I'm not sure who's going to start that discussion.
All right, I'll get us started. So tonight we're bringing forward 2 GMPs, one for Pearland High School and one for Dawson High School.
You mean
And,
Turner?
I'm sorry. Previously, Pearland High School and Turner High School. So I've got the entire team here. We submitted a packet. There was lots of information. So if you have questions, we're here to answer those questions. So Pearland High School first, it is $3.2 million over the projected budget.
Okay, we had a lot of discussion prior to the meeting about the additional $3 million on the GMP, and that's $3 million over and above the bond,
The bond projected. budget.
projected costs, right? So how about we start there, and then if you wouldn't mind, start there and leading us through what led to that overage, and then we'll just kind of go through perhaps the alternate as the facade. And we'll make those the first two items, and then we'll just see where we go from there.
Sure. In the board agenda item, we had a spreadsheet with several different scope adjustments, I guess. I guess the simplest way to describe it is, as we got into the project, it became clear that the existing conditions necessitated more than we had originally planned. So, for example, the bond didn't specifically say connect the two schools, yet certainly that was the main driving force behind creating one admin area. So that triggered the need for connecting hallways, for example. And there were several other things that are listed on this, but generally, I guess I would say the existing conditions to make the school and the design function properly as one school with the existing conditions that were there were several things that we had to incorporate in that. And in the spreadsheet, it has, kind of a list of those things and what the reasons were behind those.
Yeah, now, Jeff asked me, I think it was Jeff, about this. On page 64 of your packet, the easiest way to look at this is that the stuff listed under bond scope was in the original, and then adjustments are noted below. Do you see that on page 64? So the adjustments are kind of, I guess, where you're focused, Charles.
And then it continues on the next page,
On the
too.
next
So
page.
What
this
pages are
is
the notes on? I see 1, 2, 3, 4, but I don't. Oh, here we are. Thank you.
There you go.
Got it.
The four notes are right on top of screen there on 64. So this is what we've done, and we've also done this for Turner, but on the past GMPs, we've done the same format where we wanted to make sure we accounted for anything that wasn't specifically in the bond. And generally on these projects, there were some pluses. There were some pluses. We're careful not to have any minuses because we want to make sure we fulfilled all the bond scope. Pearland High School, as we've been reporting all along, this was the one that we were concerned about coming in. We thought it might be slightly over budget. It's a very complex project. We're working kind of surgically remodeling several different parts of the school, and so we've always been concerned that this was the most complex project, and that turned out to be essentially true. And Don.
So if I could add one thing, with the prior two GMPs that you approved and the two that you approved tonight, if you approve both, we're still $11.1 million under budget for the 4 GMPs, and then we're projected to be at $15 million under budget for the entire bond. And we're about 2/3 through bidding out all the projects.
Well, okay. That's where I come in. So I get that, and I appreciate all the work that everybody's done to make all those that happen. But I look at these on a per project basis, right? And I try to wrap my head around why, when we spent a year looking at these projects, right? We spent a year, we had a whole committee of 50 people that toured all these different campuses and decided these are the 35 projects that we need to get done. We had a lot of discussion on the 36th. That didn't happen. But after all that discussion, we have a bunch of oversights. I get that, and that happens a lot, right? I mean, large construction projects, I understand that there are things that you're going to just overlook when there's there are a lot of moving parts. I get that. So if I recall right, in our April meeting 2017, we had a conversation about when y'all presented the schematic design for Pearland High School. We had a conversation about the amount of money that we added to the bond scope in order to accommodate for increased labor and material rates and just basic time value of money, right? So in addition to that 20%, we're now 10% over budget. So we have a 30% span there, and this is the first we're hearing about it. So I would have hoped that what would have happened was that when we had this original meeting and y'all were getting indications from the contractors, y'all would have had at least some indication to say, and the last time we saw some numbers, I think we were about 500,000 under budget, if I recall right. So now we're well beyond that. Granted, we're still bond wise under budget, but if we don't have to sell the bonds, I'm even better for that, right? So $3 million in the grand scheme of things at 220, not a big deal. It's single digit percentages, but nonetheless it's still a percentage. So really like to understand
And Jeff, I think you already
how we got where we are and what it is that we can remove or modify or adjust to be able to kind of reel some of that in.
Okay, but Jeff, also, I think you already realize this, but just in case not, you realize that, what is it, about 900,000 of this is based on, particularly Lance, if you remember, wanted work on the facade.
Mhm.
So that goes down by that amount. Was it 900,000?
And 800,000 for the city requirements as well. So that's 1.7 million of whatever it is.
Three of the
But if
three.
you recall, the facade was nothing more than something to say, hey, yeah, we did work here at Pearland High School because, and I get it, you know, we spend that much money on a school. We want people to see that it's been updated and so on and so forth. But
The only thing that worries me about that, I'm not concerned about which way you go on the facade, but Lance was really pushing that, and so I hate to make a decision against the facade unless we maybe, I don't know if this is possible, postpone at least that portion until March 6th so that he has a chance to weigh in, kind of like, I don't know if that's possible.
I didn't recall seeing anything on the facade, a cost.
Oh, yeah, no, it's there.
I mean, it's in here, but prior to, right?
Well, the
When-
issue
when
with
we
that.
first-
Go ahead, Mr.
I'd
Well,
say let's not jump to conclusions
yeah,
about
just-
pulling anything yet, so
Yeah.
let's
When we
discuss.
first proposed that, when we did the schematics, we actually had estimated that that would be about 800,000. And, you know, there was some discussion about that. We said, let's go through the bidding process. We'll do it as an alternate. And so we bid it so we could isolate the cost of the different scenarios. And, you know, this GMP that we have now does include that 800. So if we didn't do the facade, you would take 800 off. But, you know, we wanted to cover the worst case.
Bless you.
But even with the worst case, we're still under budget overall on the bond.
One last question. I'm sorry to keep going. Wasn't the rig originally included in the Pearland High School bond number?
Because we're gonna package that on its own, we took the entire budget for that and pulled it aside, so that will be a project on its own.
It is now, but originally wasn't that included in the 31 million?
Well, not in the 31 million, but in a
Yeah.
bigger number.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Explain that. So the budget you see overall on that one spreadsheet that says we're 15 million under, it includes an estimated amount for the rig items. And to do the bond scope at the rig, it's 5.8 million. So right now, we're assuming three components for the Pearland construction number. It's this GMP plus 5.8 for the rig, plus there's another 770,000 that maintenance is doing. So those three numbers are what go into the construction number for Pearland High School.
So
For the
Now,
project budget.
Those projects, the 5.8 million for the rig may go either way. If that comes in under, then our situation, you know, improves.
So on page 70, you have 41,211 as the project budget, and then we're over 44,383,899, which is about 3.1 million. You're saying that current number does include the budgeted rig cost at what we budgeted without any
Yes.
changes?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
And those, all those rig projects end up being 5.8 million.
And
for-
have we, do we know that, have we bid out the rig
No.
project to know that that is the number and it's not going to come in higher?
No, we have not. So it
okay, so
could
we
come
don't
in
know for
higher.
sure that original rig, that base number that we were looking at for the rig won't come in higher, correct?
That's correct. Could
Okay.
come in higher, could come in lower.
Yes.
The reason, you know, we have not designed that yet, so we've got to go through design and bidding. We pulled the rig out
Correct.
because we don't need it, you know, we don't need it till
We pushed it
a
to
later
February,
date.
and then now we've pushed it.
Plus, we don't
Yeah.
need to deliver it till the start of the football season, so.
So at this point, just to be clear, we're over 3 million, and we don't know if the rig will come, based on what design we give, will come over or under
Well-
on that.
Sean, of course, we've got a few other projects, Junior High East, that
Right.
will come forward in April, and then we've got the elementary schools, and then we've got the security. So we're about 2/3 of the way through. So the other projects, yes, they could come in.
I get it.
over or
And
under.
and to be upfront with you, I agree with Jeff in the fact that yes, overall as a bond, we are under where we need to be, but I look at it as a project by project basis. And I think going into the bond, I think there was an assumption there that there was built in, whether you want to call it increased cost, inflation. So we knew that we assumed that we would be under budget on a lot of these projects. And I'm surprised as well a little bit that we're 3.1 over, on Pearland. But again, we did add, and I know
Scope.
we did add things to the scope, which was the ROTC and some other things as well. One question I have real quick, and I don't know if this is completely off topic because it's part of the scope in Pearland. On the shades for Pearland, we add to the tennis court. Did we add those to Dawson as well, or just to Pearland? I don't know. Just to Pearland, and there we don't have do we have that in? We don't have that in the scope of work at Dawson, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
That is correct. So at Pearland, when we were redoing those tennis courts, we added those, the shades and the lights at the tennis courts, and that's
Okay.
one of the things.
And I just bring that up because I've toured that, and in the hot summer or the fall, whenever it is, I mean, there's no shade out there for the parents. But I was just curious, why that was put in the scope at Pearland but not at Dawson.
Do you have a sense of how much that costs, John, by any chance?
I don't, not off the top of my head. We've got it broken out on our detailed estimate, which we could get.
Okay.
One thing, if John Palumbo could make a couple comments, he was, the main person we did the design work with, and he might share a few comments.
Well, we're already naming the calendar after
Gonna shift
John,
the-
so.
Golly.
Oh, calendar.
I did not vote for 5 minutes. No, just first thing, talking about these gentlemen that we've been working with and working through the project, they've really listened to our campus and our needs, like y'all are aware of now. Some things that weren't logistically thought out of with regards to connecting the buildings, making our campus one. I'm really trying to make it one heartbeat. I don't know that the disconnect between the two buildings makes a difference. And so that building those corridors, that added some of it. We had some things that we discovered as we got into it that just logistically didn't make sense. Like our athletic trainers are in the middle of a building when they're accessing kids on the outside and on the fields, and they need to be closer to that. So really looking at how do we renovate that space. When the football locker rooms were added on, we were going to put a welding place right there where we're going to have a high traffic of athletes coming in and out, and a welding place right there. So we looked at moving that welding facility to the end of the building also too for access for the equipment that they need for those buildings. So those are some things that we've looked at to make that happen. These gentlemen have really worked with us to try to make sure we're meeting the needs of our kids and also kind of making it one campus. Because it's always had a little bit of that disconnect, and I think Mr. Berger would speak to that as well with that. And so I think that's our focus and our goal with that. Some of the projects did add to the cost, and I appreciate your consideration with that because I believe it's something that truly needs to be done to meet the needs of our campus and our culture and our kids. I would also, I'll advocate, and I'm glad that it's at least on the alternate with regards to the facade and the painting of the interior of our building. I'm a believer in the presentation of a campus, and I think you can also get that experience too if you ever go to Sam Jameson with Miss Bradley. She's a big believer in that as well. It makes a difference in the experience for your kids and the culture that you get. So taking those things into consideration when y'all are making these decisions. But I'm just appreciative of these gentlemen just listening to all the input that we've given, and we know that it's kind of bled over a little bit, but it is a unique project too because it's not like we're just adding on to one space. We're renovating a bunch of different spaces. We're trying to bring a campus together. We're renumbering the building to where it makes a little bit more sense. We don't have 4 digits on one side and an N and 3 digits on another side. There's a lot of things that we've kind of looked at to try to bring this campus together. So as y'all look at things and make considerations, I just ask that y'all consider that as well.
I'll add to that a little bit. I go to Pearland High School every week because it so happens my mentee is there. and I pick him up in the office, and then we go over to the Cersei side cafeteria. And under the current configuration, that walk takes about, I don't know, 12, well, for me anyway, it takes about 12 minutes just to get from one side to the other, because that used to be two separate campuses that are now connected through a series of doors. And so anything that can be done to connect that school better would be helpful. And one of the things that was in the original scope that already does that is putting the administration in the center of that campus rather than on the extreme end. You're converting that current administration area into classrooms
Yes.
where it is now.
Do we know what the cost to rescope the inside when and I think Lance was talking about painting and making it look better? Do we know the cost difference between the facade on the outside and updating the inside is?
So the cost for the facade on the outside, that the one option that we've recommended is $800,000 to paint inside. I believe the number is probably around $200,000, and I think that's something we could somehow pull off through the execution of the project. You know, we'd find ways to make that happen.
Thank you.
I've got a few things. Okay, so I want to go back and make sure I'm understanding the actual number we're proposing and what it actually includes versus the rig renovations and all that stuff. So originally, there was kind of three separate things that we looked at for the rig: was all the lighting, locker room renovations, concession stand, and then they had another separate item that was where we were kind of basing our numbers, was the parking spaces, striping for the band practice field, band tower, the visitor side seating, and then the third one separately was the press box. So total, that was more than $5 million. So I just, whatever the 5 million point, whatever it was. So I just want to make sure my understanding is of what this new projection of the $44,383,000, what does that include, and what numbers are you saying are separate, or does that include the original, all of those things?
It includes everything that's in the bond, all of those things, plus this list of adjustments that we've made. So it does include the future rig GMP, and it includes maintenance. Did about 700,000 worth of, the rig lighting and stuff. That's already been done.
That's already right.
Wanted to make sure we captured everything in the bond in this 44.3 million.
Okay, so any and all, I just want to make for clarification, any and all original bond scopes numbers are included in this new projection of 44.
Can you go to
Correct.
page 6, just go down to 6?
I know, but it's a little bit confusing because it says future GMP. Well, that future in GMP is actually being included in this 44. It's not future. We're voting on
estimate.
it tonight.
No, you're not
Well, no,
voting
no.
on the GMP for that tonight, Pam. That's totally pulled out for next month. You're just
So this $44 million does not include all of these things on the bottom. That's what I'm trying
It
to-
includes it does include everything. Some of it's a projection of what.
But you're not
But the
voting on that
GMP is for
page.
34 million tonight. They've
Yeah.
pulled the rig out. The GMP tonight is 34.
Right, okay. So, but the bond, this total bond projection is that about 10 million for these particular things, whatever the difference is between
Right,
the
that's where we're gonna
bond
end up at the
projection
end.
and the GMP for this, okay.
This whole chart is where we project to be at the end if everything stays exactly as it is right now,
Okay.
as we plan it to be. We've either bid these things or we're projecting the cost.
Okay.
So that bottom line of 15 million, as you remember, has gone up between 10 and 20, so it fluctuates as we get these prices in and
Okay.
we see what the bids really are.
And that was my discomfort with giving PBK guidance to move ahead with a rig scope that was above the bond scope, right? Because I just didn't know what was going to be happening down the line, right? So today we end up $3 million over, and the deal with this overage is it's not like you added, I don't know, just like luxury items, right? I mean, I think when you talk about having to correct the foundation over at the band hall, and there was more foundation work over by the in the theater, right? It's kind of functional stuff, right? It's an overage, yes, but it's functional stuff. And after hearing the explanation and kind of figuring out where we are, I've got a much higher comfort level with the package here. But I mean, we'll just have to make decisions as we go down the line about the rig
Future,
and about
right.
other things. So, did anyone have any other concerns that hadn't been addressed at this point, or any other?
I have another, well, just more of a timeline factor of how long the theater and the renovations at PHS are going to affect the drama program.
Yes, and we
the
work-
skits and the shows that they put on.
We've been working with the school on that, so it's gonna go down on May 1st, 2018.
Okay.
And it's a pretty involved project, so we've told them to be, they're gonna be out for, of course, the summer, the fall semester, and plan on being out for the spring semester also. I think that's what
A year.
So
that'll be,
figure a
yeah.
full school year, and we may be able to do better, but
So we're hoping to be
just
back
wanna
in, like,
plan for worst
for
case.
August 2019? Okay.
Yes.
And they're planning on using Turner High School and Nelson Junior High.
Or shows but what about like what do they do for everyday practice stuff? They'll have to go to the other places
I
at Turner
don't
as
know.
well? Bus over to Turner?
I know that they've already been talking about it. The lady was
Just in
talking to me
generals.
about it.
Well, it depends on the time of year and when we're doing it. But
There you
overall, what we're planning on doing, a lot of the stuff they can do blocking kind of in different facility spaces that we already have in the
Okay.
campus, and they really don't get on the stage until they get closer to that time.
Okay.
We're working on a handful of logistical things for sets right now, but we feel pretty good about where we're at with it. So
Well, I mean, I don't obviously need
it's
all
not
the
going to be
details,
ideal, but
okay.
it'll work.
This
You
is
just gotta make it work.
this is completely off but do either of those theaters have a fly system?
The PHS will now have a fly
I know they
system
will,
with these
but see,
No,
renovations.
Turner or
Nelson,
Nelson,
Legacy,
neither
and
one of them have it.
No, but Dawson does. Dawson has it.
Yeah, but they can't use Dawson because Dawson's using Dawson.
Right.
Unless they
I
want
was
us
just
to.
curious if they,
All right, you can't
yeah,
share
I was
it.
just
I'm
curious.
just kidding.
All right. Any other outstanding
I had one
questions?
more.
or-
Let me see what it was.
I guess so. While she's thinking about that,
Yes, sir.
do we want to discuss the facade? Are you wanting to pull that out of GMP
Well,
and table it for
that'll be-
Lance? I mean,
No, that'll be one of your. If you wanted to talk about how we would handle that, then yeah, there you go.
Go for it,
So,
Sean.
no, I mean, I just looking at the two different scopes. So there's just so we know there's three options, which is do nothing, correct? With the
So
facade, there's
that's-
the brick plasters, which enhances it, as Lance would say, so it doesn't look like a hospital, which we would deduct $600,000 from this GMP price, and then there's the next slide, which would be the facade to include the dark panels and sunshades, which is included in this current pricing.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the status quo I don't think is acceptable. We talked earlier this year about the need for the community to be able to see some of the changes that we're doing, the importance for them to know we're actually, their money's going to work. I mean, I don't know what Lance, I agree with Lance, more so on the internal side of the school. I think that, John, you said that. I mean, if you walk in there, it's kind of like, it's a little bit, dreary, one would say, nicely.
I could
You
channel
mentioned-
Lance right now and say that our schools need to be and look and feel world class.
Was there we've mentioned a couple things about painting in the interior, and is that something that's not in here, is it?
It's not in here. What John and I have talked about is what you see at, I believe Dawson has this, where you have, like the lower 3 feet is white, and then there's a 18-inch band, and then there's another color above. So fairly like a typical high school that they're doing these days. We just didn't that. You don't have that right now.
Can I
It's-
ask Dr. Kelly, in your opinion, is this better use of bond money or something for special projects that come in the May budget?
Oh, for the painting?
interior.
You mean the painting?
Yes.
I hadn't thought of it that way, but I don't.
Would we probably get it at a better cost since they're already on site?
You would, and it's not something that he would ever be able to come up with an annual budget or anything. I mean, it's.
Yeah, we'd add that as a
this would be the
special
time to do it.
project item, as you said. Yeah.
Well, I don't think it'd be an annual deal because it's a
No.
one-time.
No, it'd be a one-time addition, and I don't know if our maintenance department is capable of doing that internally or
Well,
externally.
no, we'd
but-
sub it out. I
Yeah.
was just curious if it would be better suited to come out of which budget. Our
Bucket of money.
yeah.
I would suggest if you're gonna do it, this would be the way to do it, because you've got a contractor on board, but,
No, I mean, yeah, while we've got that school under renovation, one general contractor managing all that would be the best way to do it.
Okay, now is this something we're just throwing out? Because again,
Well-
just wanted to make sure I wasn't missing anything.
You know, as
This wasn't
we-
included in any
This
scope
wasn't
of the work.
included in any of
This is a
It's
Lance.
not included, but as we execute this project, we're gonna be looking for ways from day one to save money. And so if we can come up with some money-saving ideas, then maybe we could move that to the painting of the
But
interior.
to clarify, this is not included in the GMP we're voting on tonight.
That's
That's
correct.
correct.
Okay, but it says it's included in the GMP price, so I guess that would
I
be
mean,
for a
the
different GMP, a
painting.
later GMP?
The interior
Oh, the
painting.
painting, the
Oh,
interior painting,
interior,
right.
okay.
Okay.
No, if I catch you there, Michael, the page that says
It's 66.
included in GMP price.
let me back up. Okay,
Yeah.
so
That's for the upper
that's,
front facade.
that's the top of the line, that's included in the price.
And that's included in the GMP we're recommending.
Right, and I am much more, getting back to this subject, much more favorable with this one. Starting including the GMP, it looks to me a whole lot better than the other one. It is $600,000 more.
800.
That's just
So-
The top one is 800K. That one's 800.
This is included.
Included.
It's 600 more than the other alternative.
No. So this is included in GMP. If you go down to just this facade, you can take 600 back out of that 34 million. Then if you go down one more, you can take 800
Right.
out of that
This
34
This is
million.
unacceptable. I don't think
Okay.
that's status quo's not okay.
Oh, gotcha, so it's did everything backwards, okay.
Okay.
I'm on
And-
board with this
That's
one.
$800,000.
Right, all right. So we got two things. And since painting is not part of the bond scope, we'll have to, I don't know if that has to come back at another time, but I guess you did get guidance that, sprucing it up would be a good idea. And I guess we got enough of us here tonight to go ahead and consider the facade as well. So, members, you got an idea, you got a good idea what it is that's in the GMP and what's not. I'm sure you have your opinions on what should be included, what should be approved. So at this time, if there are any other questions, any
No,
other
I think
concerns?
we need to do the facade, so.
And so the GMP, if the motion is to
Okay,
approve
we'll
the
make the
GMP,
motion.
then as presented, that includes that facade.
The facade.
Right.
Right.
Okay. I'll make a motion that we approve the GMP as presented with the improvements.
It's a motion by Mr. Murphy, second by Mr. Floyd. Any further discussion?
Just
Yeah.
for
Yes,
comment, I'm good with it, and I'm good with, I feel a little bit better after this discussion. But it still is the same, I feel like I'm out of the loop. So I get the bond I get the board agenda, I'm like, I feel blindsided by things. I mean, I didn't know I was gonna, what I'm saying, I just don't feel like we know what's going on. And we get it, and then we gotta vote Tuesday. So I feel better after discussing it tonight, and I know we had, I emailed back and forth questions about stuff, but I still just feel out of the loop
Yeah,
on
I think,
stuff.
Pam,
I get something, I'm like, I
Yeah.
had no
I think-
idea.
I think in retrospect, what they said at the very beginning is the problem for tonight. The PHS is a far more complicated project than anything else, and so there were a lot more adjustments
Right.
that were made over the last couple of months. I don't think you're seeing that in any of the other projects. The only to me, I could be understating this, but the complex discussion is next month in March on the rig, because the board has given several completely different ideas on that. So.
Well, I think where she's coming from is that the book that Jeff has is that when we left that meeting, we had talked about the facade and said, okay, we think it's about 900, but we're going to put together some options and we'll come back to you. Well, here we are.
Right.
However many months later, here it is. It's in GMP. So there was nothing.
To be fair, they brought.
Well,
didn't they bring? They brought the renderings back. They didn't have actual numbers on them, right?
Right.
Am I wrong about that?
there were supposed to be options, I think, kind of, but we never really had that discussion. I think that's all Pam is saying is maybe if we could see that discussion before coming to the board meeting again.
I don't think what Pam's complaint is project specific, is it?
No, it's bond-wise.
Because this is, I've
bond-wide.
been here for 10 months, and I think I've heard Jeff say the same thing 10 times at least.
Yeah.
That we are out of the loop and we need to be brought in more. And I don't want to, be overbearing with what we expect, but it probably should be a little bit more
Little
than
more
getting it the Friday before, because then our weekends are are busy and we have to
Yeah.
really discuss
Read
these.
it
Maybe we
Sunday
can figure
night,
out, we can
typically.
figure out how to get this body, the Bond Oversight Committee, in a little bit tighter loop, maybe a little bit more information, a little bit more updates. Maybe they don't, we can work that out, right? But at this point, there is a motion and a second.
Right.
I'd like
the
real
feedback
quick.
is,
I'm going to kind of reiterate what Pam said, in that I see the letter from Stewart to say that work is going to commence 10 days after approval,
I forgot
right?
to ask that.
And so, so I'm thinking, well, if we don't approve it tonight, we don't move forward. What if we had some significant changes that we wanted to make? Just for example, we're seeing the costs associated with some of these things that we had spoken about when we talked about the previously, the schematics that y'all presented, right, back in April of last year. What do? We run the risk of pushing the project out, and we really hinder Mr. Palumbo and all the other principals associated with those projects. That's just not fair to them, just because we feel like we're out of the loop, or maybe we want to get some more information associated with those projects. So is there any way possible that we can get that information sooner, maybe 30 days sooner, so we can have a conversation in the previous board meeting? I know that's hard to do, but I'm just asking, I'm throwing that out there.
We can, the bids only come in, we've only had these bids for maybe 2 weeks or so. So the way we have these schedules, they're fairly tight by necessity to stay on schedule. They get the bids, they have a week or so to digest them and scope them and make sure, adjust them, and then we put the agenda item together and submit it. So we've only seen, I believe, I'm not sure when we got these bids in, but it was maybe just a couple of weeks ago. So we are moving pretty quickly on that, in that regard. So if we got you something before we got the bids in, it would
Or
probably
submit the
be-
RFQ or RFP
it would
30 days earlier.
If we got you something 30 days before the board meeting, it really would just be a projection. And if we had done this on Pearland, it would still say our projection, the best we knew at the time was $500,000 under.
But if you got your responses from your contractors 30 days prior,
Those schedules are already set. All of these projects are on schedule and on track by the original bond schedule.
So may I ask,
I think, for example, like on Junior High East, we're gonna receive those bids and then 2 weeks later bring them to the school board. If what I'm hearing is you'd like us to delay that until May, where you'd have more time to.
No, but can
No, we
you,
wanna
for,
pull 'em
for
in.
instance, if you look at page 64 and 65, that shows the scope of the work. So if you know those two pages, and then you know what the bids came in 2 to 3 weeks ago, is it not okay for us to see those before the board meeting?
Well, I think what I take away from this conversation, because I know, in fairness to this team, they are working on a million different projects and trying to keep them on schedule. So what I hear from this discussion is, where we can, let's get this stuff earlier than 72 hours before the board meeting. And we can do that.
Definitely understand with the bid process, I know how that works a little bit. You don't, well, I mean, you've got a contractor and you've got all the subcontractors bidding, and if there's a deadline given for things to be turned in, the subcontractors can't even get the materials until basically the absolute last second, because the reps that they're buying from will not release, they won't release that information because it's such a competitive bid process for the subcontractors to give to the contractor to give to these guys that they don't get those. It's not like you can set it that many days out. They
I
won't.
think, certainly we
It
can
won't
get
happen.
those numbers earlier, a week or 10 days prior, or even 2
Yeah, but
weeks.
even 10 days ago, if we would've got a quick email that said, hey, we look like we're gonna be 3.2 million over, then we could've started.
I
we
think
may-
that's a
we may
concern.
have asked
is
to have a special meeting or
more
something,
concerned is
you know?
having questions when we're over than when we're under.
Well, of
Okay,
course.
fair enough.
So is there a way that we can actually get, I don't know, the agenda? Is there a way we can get the agenda 2 or 3 days before?
That's tough too, isn't it?
You
Usually?
mean 2 or 3 days before we do now?
Yeah, so
Well,
instead of
the
the Friday,
problem-
maybe the Wednesday.
It's always a trade-off, Michael, because if you give it out earlier, then the information isn't as current. And so a lot of times, I mean, it
Can't
is
add
coming
anything either
together.
once it's posted.
No, not
you
once.
can add
Well,
new
you can add
posts.
supplementary information, but the agenda items have to. You can't discuss. You can't add an agenda item.
Right.
But you can add more detail to an agenda item.
Sure.
But in many cases, I've fluctuated back, and sometimes we were able to get the packet, but it's not easy.
So it's possible for us to get this information prior to it being released to the public.
Yeah, that's what I'm proposing here, is we're saying, instead of waiting until the board packet for y'all to receive that, in some cases, we might be able to give you this information in advance of the board packet, in advance of the agenda.
So when you say in some cases, what?
Well, when it's available.
Well, I can say generally, we submit the items 8 calendar days beforehand. So on this one, I was packaging it up on February 5th. And we actually, the week before that, we were working the price back and forth. So, you know, at least 2 weeks before this, we can get you a number and say, this is where we think it's going to be, and it might have a few tweaks in it, but we can give you an idea, I think.
Yeah, and what's
That's all I'm asking.
Game,
I
if that
mean,
helps.
to Pam's point, I think it'd be nice if we could, if it were a significant overage or, you know, something that Sean mentioned, then maybe we have a special board meeting or something like that to have a
Yeah,
conversation.
I mean, in this particular case, you got the GMP on February the thing from Stewart Builders on February the 2nd. And this is the 13th, so that's 11 days.
Right.
You know, and still, they've got to look it all over and decide if they agree with the GMP proposed to them.
Right, and I can say on this one, on the 2nd, that's when we and Stewart had agreed, this is the price.
Okay.
But
When you
we were
packaged it
still.
all together on the 5th, is that when you?
Right, we put it together on the 5th and the 6th, you know, early the week before the board meeting is when we package all that up and submit it, and then it, you know, gets reviewed.
And I,
So-
I'm
That's
sorry,
not much more.
I know you got to call for
Something
the
for me,
vote.
no, something for me that's a
But
little
we
bit more
can-
specific is that just, Sean, what you were talking about when they came back with the alternates at this point.
Get those.
Yeah,
ordered.
no, and the deal is that we hadn't seen this since April, and so you were right. And just to have it back and kind of not having, you know, I had to go back and pull my old stuff, so maybe a little more insight in the projection, not the projection, but in the presentation of the board packet, kind of gives you a little bit more history about, well, look, we talked about this was going to be extra, these things were going to be extra, and now in the design process, we've come up with this more. So it doesn't just hit you 3.1, you kind of have some meat behind it, right? And outside of the fact that we had the
Never got one of those.
I think the information that you're seeing here, including the spreadsheet, we can get you that earlier, and we, subject to, you know, final negotiation or whatever. I mean,
Pam, you had one more
we can
thing?
get
Yeah,
you
sorry,
what you
one more
need.
thing I forgot to ask. So if this is approved tonight, what is our timeline to start? Is it 10 days out from today?
Yes, we have one final thing. We've got to still get the permit, which we submitted for last week because we had to add that little ROTC chunk. So I think we're expecting the permit, I think by the end of the month. Jeff, does that sound reasonable? Another 2 weeks?
Does this includes the UDC?
Yeah,
probably?
It's a
but
city
in
of
the
Pearland.
meantime,
It may
what-
not be ready in 10
Well,
days. I
well,
understand.
I have an appointment with Dr. Kelly to sign
hear
this. We have the contract ready. I have it right here. So
Okay.
if you approve it, we'll sign the contract on Thursday, and that'll get them going. Before they actually mobilize on site, they've got a few weeks of signing up subcontractors and everything,
So
but they
in
need that
hopes we'll
notice to
have the
proceed.
permit finished before all that's
Right,
ready. Okay.
they should be in
Okay.
fine shape.
Okay.
Outstanding. Let's call for the vote. All in favor, please raise your right hand.
Did someone make a motion?
Yes.
Yes.
There's a motion and a second from Murphy and Flo.
That was a
All right,
long
Sean,
discussion. I'm
sorry.
sorry I
Yeah,
started
yeah,
that because I
okay.
forgot to ask something. Okay.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0 with trustees Botkin and Decker absent. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
We look forward to
Thank
seeing
you.
y'all next
Appreciate
week
it.
for the conclusion.
Come
of the
back for the
calendar.
calendar meeting too.
Yeah, we'll see you.
Yeah, sorry. We should have bumped you on front of the calendar. Y'all should go a lot smoother because you're under. Yes, we like under.
One quick heads up or warning, I guess. So in 3 weeks at the March meeting, we will need a decision on the, which way to go on the rig press box in order to stay on schedule to have that open for the football season in
But now-
2019. We've kind of pushed that as far
Okay,
as we can.
but I do want to remind the board that they got those options, did they not, at a meeting, 2 months ago?
We got the options
Same,
for,
yeah,
it was like
nothing's-
3, 6, and $11 million or
Right,
something
and
crazy like that.
nothing's
Do you want
changed
one of
since then.
Okay.
Nothing's changed since
I
then?
wasn't in there.
Okay. Did you do the bus tour to Dickinson? That's where you were.
No. All right, let's go down to the next item
Right,
on
all
the
right.
Thanks,
agenda.
guys.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you, guys.
Okay,
Miss-
item 4. Consider to
Vice-
approve, excuse me.
Go ahead,
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Consider to approve the GMP amendment to the contract with Durotech for services related to the Turner College and Career High School 2016 bond project.
To my great relief,
Make a motion.
this one's coming in under
Got a motion.
$3 million.
Yeah, we have good news on Turner High School, $22,601,831, and that's just under $3 million under budget. And we have our team here from Stantec. We're happy to answer any questions on that
It
one.
almost makes a wash between one campus and the
Kelly, can I ask one real quick question?
I was hoping you would see that, Pam.
Mr.
No.
Tillis, do you know if the oversight committee was made aware of the changes we just voted on?
They were briefed on the facade.
Yes.
Yes, they saw all that information. That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Sorry.
And did they have any input or?
I
Yeah,
think
okay,
the,
I can-
I
okay to
think
ask
the
that.
Yeah,
con-
yes, you can.
consensus of the group was that they thought that that added value, and it showed that there was, projects happening at Pearland High School. There was a lot of bang
Right.
for the buck.
Sorry.
All right, no problem. All right,
Right, Turner.
Laura, do you want to? Nope. Okay.
You want to make a motion?
Are there
No
any?
further words needed.
And we should have took y'all first. I wasn't even thinking about that.
Yeah, anybody under in the future goes first.
All right. Yeah, that's there you go. Board policy. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Discussion?
Is there any discussion on the Turner project?
So we're not gonna have any surprises? Everything's good, right?
Well,
The
hopefully
scope
so.
is the scope.
All the
It's-
scope
yeah.
in, okay.
So we have a
All
motion.
right.
Thank you so much. Good job.
I'll make a motion. We improve the GMP for the Duratec
Second.
project.
Motion by Mr. Murphy, second by Mr. Berry. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, let's vote. All in favor, please raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Trustees Botkin and Decker absent.
Thank you very much.
All right. That is the end of the
Motion to
regular
adjourn.
agenda.
You
Not
didn't
yet.
have to
All
get
right.
up. Yeah, we should have made y'all go first, sorry.
Yeah, sorry about that. We wasn't even thinking
Man,
about
they
it.
didn't even get any questions. Gosh.
Mm-mm. That's it? We're done? Hey,
We can,
so
sure.
you
All right.
want to keep
Any
going?
other?
Well, mine doesn't work right because it's supposed to alternate between the two.
Hey, and
All right, there's no further business to come before the board. We will adjourn at 8:25 p.m.